Welcome to Inside the Program, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. I'm Joe Cook. That's Eric Naleen. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have not done so yet, head to InsideTexas.com. Sign up for just $1. Eric posted a ton of insider notes over there, both late last night and early this morning. More on the way as we get ready for the game. Insight, analysis, coverage, everything you want. Got some recruiting updates as well. And of course, we have the best Texas Longhorns community. So if you want to join, pause the video, scan that QR code. That'll take you there. Sign up for just $1, and you will get a full year of access to the Athletic thrown in with your subscription. So hopefully we see a lot more of y'all over on Inside Texas. We'll talk, Eric, a little bit about some of the stuff you posted, including preparing for Florida's best shot, notable developments and absence in the secondary, available Longhorns for this game at Florida, and then a chance to show out for Arch and the offensive line. But we start Florida 1-3. They have a loss in SEC play to LSU. They lost to Miami and South Florida. They beat up on Long Island. All the noise about Billy Napier is loud enough to be heard across the country. But even with all that going on, Texas is preparing as if they're going to get one of the best games Florida can provide here on October 4th.
Yeah, absolutely. The coaches are challenging the team, especially on defense. The offense already knows they're up against it. They haven't played well. Florida has a well-known, solid defense, maybe even a really good defense. I'm not quite as sold on Florida's defense as some others. I know that they're good, and they'll probably look pretty good against Texas. But obviously, the defense at Texas is exceptional. I was just looking at some stats. Number one in stop rate. They're just talented. They're deep. You could look at box scores of Florida and maybe get lulled to sleep. I think Lagway had 60 yards passing against Miami, and he hasn't been hitting the deep ball like he did last year. The coaches are challenging them. They're challenging them at all three levels. They're challenging the defensive line to move that offensive line. They've got a ton of respect for the Florida offensive line. They want them to reroute that line of scrimmage. They want to play on the other side of it. They're challenging the D tackles. They're challenging the edges. They're challenging the cornerbacks to stick with the talented wide receivers, and they're getting more talented with Dallas Wilson making his debut. It's just all, they're talking about Florida like Lagway is exceeding his preseason expectations that were already exceedingly high. And it's just been a constant week of the coaches being in their ear and saying, we're not taking them lightly. And the players have responded. That's, they know that Lagway is talented. You can watch a couple highlights of his and see that. They're not taking them lightly is the shortest way to put this.
Talked a little bit about like the psychology of 3-1 versus 1-3 and what that may do, but there's also a little bit of psychology with maybe one of Texas' best defenders not being available for Saturday, and what that means for some other players who may not have seen as many snaps as some of the starters to start the year, but they're going to get starter snaps here on Saturday, especially if the absence you hinted at comes to fruition.
Yeah, I wasn't tracking Malik Muhammad because I saw him as probable on the initial injury report. And so normally probable means playing. But then when he got downgraded to questionable, I'm like, oh, he's probably not playing. So, we don't expect him to play. It's not a big issue. It is something that you can re-aggravate relatively easily, which I think is probably what happened in practice, which is why he went from probable to questionable. Now, they've got a lot of ways to make up for Muhammad's absence. I think you're going to see a little bit more Grayson Littleton over at corner. We expect Kobe Black to get the start. Warren Roberson's going to play. Of course, Jalen Gilbo's going to start opposite Kobe Black in his normal position. We could see Cade Phillips and Littleton over there. It makes a lot more sense because they're not going to be in nickel as much. They're going to be in base personnel where the nickel comes off for Trey Moore at linebacker. So it makes perfect sense to play Littleton over there. But Kobe Black's going to get the start. Expects to see some others. It's likely, it's almost certain that Muhammad will be back for OU. They just need to get by this week. And hope that Lagway doesn't find his groove throwing at Dallas Wilson or whoever else. They do have talent at wide receiver. If he gets pass protection and then, one guy makes a mistake, loses his technique, that's the one thing that didn't happen often with Manny. It could end up in points. But there's a lot of confidence in the guys. Kobe Black could probably be starting this year. He'd be starting at most schools across the country. So I think there's a lot of confidence in the guys they have there, but they got a chance to go out there and make some plays.
You had mentioned in the notes that you posted about how Dwayne Aquina maybe not has as big a rotation at those safety spots. We're hearing a lot of different names for corner as Texas heads to Florida. Do you think that similar could apply to safety, or is he going to go with the guys he knows?
I think it will be a little bit tighter, but one development is you could see Jelani McDonald at nickel. Now, we just talked about nickel doesn't play as much, especially if they're in base. They're in base when Florida goes 2 tight end sets, which they do often. But there are times that you can match up those 2 tight ends with Jelani McDonald. If they're in 2 tight end look and it's, third and 7, you might want McDonald out there. And then that would bring on Derek Williams. So I do think it's going to be a little tighter rotation at safety. We could see one of Jordan Johnson-Rebel, Xavier Filsaime. But Derek Williams is going to be the third safety. I'm not certain that they're going to go deeper than number 3, but we could see number 4. And if it was number 4, I think it would probably be Jordan Johnson-Rebel based on the last couple of weeks.
Before we keep on going, got to show some love to our sponsor, and that is Academy Sports and Outdoors.
Any gate can be a tailgate.
We'll move on. We've talked a little bit about the injury report, the availability report, and all that. One of the names that's good to see moving in the right direction is Trey Wisner. Hasn't played since the Ohio State game, and you said they gave him a good little taste in practice of what he'd been missing, and he responded well as he gets ready for the Swamp.
Yeah, they didn't really hold him back. You've got to get running backs carries. They've got to get reacclimated to ball security and hitting the lane when it's there. You've got to get up to full speed. And he showed why he's the number 1 back on the team right now. He's the most decisive. He cuts when he needs to. He hits the hole hard, and then he provides an extra boost in practice. He's the Energizer Bunny out there. He's the lead guy. They're excited to have him back. And there might be more talented running backs on the roster, but I don't think there's more consistent run maximizers than Trey Wisner. That's probably the biggest value add he brings this week. I think they're going to minimize the run schemes that they run when they're not going to be as varied. But there are holes to be had even against Florida with an offensive line that hasn't been great. Just watching Miami play, there's going to be some running availability for Wisner, and I'm not sure how much he's going to share the rock because I don't think C.J. Baxter's going to play. Baxter might even be questionable for OU based on what I've heard. So Trey Wisner, this might be a hero game for him in his return. Jarrett Gibson would probably be running back number 2. But he's had ball security issues, and if there's rain, the ball's slick, I'm not sure how much he's going to play. We'll see about that. Christian Clark could be running back number 2. I lean towards Gibson, but we're not certain. I think Wisner's going to get by far the most carries. They're going to try to lean on him. He's tough, he's durable, and it's a big game for him. Obviously, everybody's talking about him at Mosley. We look for him to be in the rotation early. He's not going to start, but he's interchangeable with either Parker Livingston or Ryan Wingo, play either outside spot. And he'll play with either combination. You can see Mosley and Livingston. You can see Wingo and Livingston, Wingo and Mosley. It doesn't matter. They really like having Mosley out there in 12 personnel because he's an exceptional blocker, but also still a dangerous receiver. I was excited to hear that he's even thicker than Ryan Wingo. That tells you that he's got some really he's got a lot of muscle behind his want to as a blocker. I'm excited to lay eyes on him. He's got good hands. He and Arch had a number of good completions this week. Seemed to waste a little time trying to build that rapport, that relationship. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table. We should get an early look at him this weekend.
Last but certainly not least, a lot of attention on the quarterbacks, DJ Lagway with Florida and what he's done this year. But then, of course, Arch Manning and, the ups and downs that he's had and the ups and downs that he's had along with the Texas offensive line. And it sounded like from what you wrote that everybody views this as an opportunity to show what they've built on from the preceding 3 weeks and as they get to SEC play.
Yeah, practice for Arch has been a continuation of what we saw against Sam Houston State. He had a good game against Sam Houston. Started off a little bit shaky, but rounded into form. I expect to see the guy that finished the game against Sam Houston State to start. Now he's going up against a much, much, much better defense. It's not even comparable. But he's had a good couple of weeks of practices, showing good decision making, getting through his progressions better. He still can tend to lose his mechanics a little bit as he goes from one side of the field to the other. But he had a number of look-off completions this past week, look one way, go the other way, that were, next level stuff. He's capable of those next level plays. We've all seen that NFL ability. It's all about consistency with him. He is getting more consistent. I think he's going to play pretty well. I just saw Carson Beck play horribly against Miami. Carson Beck looked like he did against Texas last year, other than he didn't have as many turnovers. I think Arch is going to outplay Carson Beck this week. It's not going to say as much because I just, downplayed how good Beck was. But Miami got out of there with a 26-7 victory with Beck playing terribly. I think if Arch plays just average, Texas is going to be in great shape. As far as the offensive line, yeah, I think they're going to play well relative to the competition. That doesn't mean that they're going to play necessarily. They're not going to dominate by any stretch of the imagination. I do think that Sark is figuring out what they can and can't do. And you call a lot less of what they can't do and a lot more of what they can do. I think they can actually move the ball a little bit on the ground with gap schemes and maybe even some off tackle. The edges for Florida can be a little bit soft. They're not as good as the interior. The feeling is that they're playing more cohesively and individually they're improving as well. But this is a big test. I don't know exactly what to expect out of them. The practice reports we get on them between the first team offense and first team defense are a little bit incomplete, but they did create some running room for Trey Weiser in practice. I'm encouraged by that. And I think there are some yards on the ground to be had, even though Florida has a good defense.
Should be a lot of fun to track. And we've seen Texas and Steve Sarkisian go up against Ron Roberts and what he likes to run before, not just at Florida, but I think at Baylor when he was under Dave Aranda, they got a taste too. So not like it's a totally unfamiliar, thing that he has to go up against. So it should be fun to watch. Thank you for watching us. Make sure to like the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you have not done so yet, head to InsideTexas.com. Join for just $1. It's the first link in the description. It's also the QR code you see at the top left of the screen. The best Texas Longhorns inside intel, complete coverage, community, and everything you would want from a website that has a bunch of burnt orange on it. Join for just $1. It will also throw in a full year of access to The Athletic as well. So, Eric, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Inside the Program, presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors.